Adults of Reddit, what part of being an adult caught you completely off guard because no one talks about it? How absolutely constant it all is. Even when you think you're getting a break, like a vacation, you're just doing other adult things you don't normally do in your everyday life. The opportunity to meet people is limited compared to when you were in high school or college. High school and college provided you with extra activities clubs to do that helped you meet people with similar mindsets, interests as you. When you graduate, you lose seeing these people consistently or even at all. So when you make it to the real world, the friends you did make from those things aren't as available as they used to be. It can be hard to meet up and do things like you used to. AKA adulthood gets pretty lonely unless you're in a relationship, married, have kids, have a roommate, or find clubs for adults that hold your interests. The sheer volume of responsibilities is staggering. I expected bills, cleaning, work. I didn't expect the list of things I am responsible for to get so long. Every year it's more. It never stops piling up. Like if I just had to write down all the things I am supposed to be doing, I wouldn't have time to do anything else. In order to complete anything, I know I have to neglect something else. Being an adult is choosing what to neglect. Try not to neglect your mental health at every turn. It's the easiest. Yeah, you're right. I think it's worth putting a lot of thought into what can be avoided, simplified, or optimized in some way, often by doing stuff in bulk to get some economies of scale. Just to cut this stuff down as much as feasible. For example, some half-serious only ideas. Buy only identical black socks, so you never need to spend time matching them up. Buy a load of spare extra birthday cards in one shop, so you always have a few to hand and don't have to make special trips for every upcoming birthday. Extreme example, you could make a list now of every birthday occasion you expect to need to send a card for in the next 12 months and buy all those cards now, and store them in order. Stuff that doesn't go off, buy in massive quantities and stock up way before they run out. Pasta, rice, etc. Cooking big quantities of stuff in bulk is an obvious one, then keep enough for a couple more meals in the fridge, and freeze the rest in meal-size portions. Also obviously get all bills set to direct debit, automate anything like that as far as possible, usually cheaper too. But yeah, sometimes all this stuff feels like a job on its own. I have been through the whole black identical socks thing. It is not so easy. The problem is, you buy black socks, but never again you will be able to buy the same ones again. So instead of having nicely paired black socks, you end up having pairs of nearly identical black socks where the area around your ankle is always different. My new solution to this now is I buy only socks with pictures or symbols on them. The more colors the better. I really prefer them so bright that even a colorblind person could sort them in the dark. It's maybe not for everyone, but for me it works better than the black sock approach. A lesson I think everyone should know. Time doesn't heal trauma wounds, addressing them does. Especially because childhood is when you form the most beliefs and understandings of the world, so your experiences in childhood affect your perspective forever unless you reprogram your brain with a new belief. And lots of them can't be healed. Sure, you can get over the time your crush was mean to you, or you choked on stage during your recital. But serious physical or sexual abuse, malnutrition, sleep deprivation, or especially pharmacological abuse, that is, being forced to take prescription drugs you don't need, those can be difficult or pretty much impossible to get over. There's no changing you growing up 6 inches shorter than you should have, or your brain being permanently unbalanced because it developed with a host of drugs in it that taught it not to release certain neurochemicals, or being unable to be comfortable with physical intimacy because you had no agency over your own body as a child. I know someone who is over 50 and still struggling with confidence issues from a bad teacher in grade school. He asked me, why can't I get over this? I said, you're living in this great house. Your house can stand up to tornadoes, hail, wind, rain. You're happy with your house. But a lot of people built the foundation brick by brick. Most of these people did a great job, so you don't have to worry about the foundation. Still, sometimes you go into your crawl space and see this loose brick. Someone didn't do a good job with it. It's not going to make the house fall down, but you know it's there. So you have 3 options. Quit going into the crawl space to stare at the brick, get some cement and fix the brick yourself, or just say to yourself, there's that loose brick again. and look around and remind yourself that you don't love your house any less just because of it. Having to decide what to eat for the rest of your life. It can turn into laziness, which leads to unhealthy eating. I don't want to do all that cooking when I can just throw a pizza in the oven. Even though I know deep down I need to eat more veggies and not have food go to waste. Edit. Thanks for all the comments and ideas. Glad to know I wasn't the only one stressed about it. It makes me thankful to my mom, who always had a dinner idea. Also, just to clarify, when I mentioned veggies, I was more implying eating healthier in general instead of easy frozen things or snacks. I apologize, my word choice wasn't great. I'm grateful for frozen veggies. The trick I've found is to make the most convenient foods in your house be as healthy as possible, and have the healthy foods be as convenient as possible. For example, the easiest thing in my house to cook are these frozen dumplings that I steam. They're not the healthiest, but they're way healthier than my previous go-to. And we realized that the chore of chopping vegetables was keeping us from eating some vegetables. So we started buying frozen, already chopped vegetables. I've always been my wife's kitchen helper, chop stuff, put things away, clean up, do dishes, but I've always thought I didn't have any skill at cooking. She got a new job this year and get home after me, so we decided to try some of the meal delivery services. Turns out with some instruction, I actually enjoy cooking, and it makes me really happy when she gushes over the meals I'm preparing for us. We are also careful about choosing healthier meals, and adding ingredients to stretch them to leftovers for lunch the next day. Now I can pull out a recipe without any fear that I'll screw it up, and can wing it at times if I need to. I learned to cook in my 50s and I'm pretty proud of that. Young men, you will really impress a potential partner much more if you learn some skills in the kitchen. It's also fun to cook together. Learn earlier than I did. When's my next dentist's appointment? Do I need to buy milk? Does the baby have clean clothes for tomorrow? Did I leave the laundry in the washer? Did I top up the window wash fluid in the car? Did I pay the heat bill? When is my insurance up for renewal? When is grandma's birthday and do I have a card for her? What daycare should I send my kids to? Did I put deodorant on this morning? Yes. The mental load is never ending, and with every stage in life, buying a car, buying a house, marriage, kids, you just add more and more to the load. I guess dating. There are so many factors to take into account compared to college, high school. What kind of baggage trauma are they dealing with? Do they have a kid? Are you okay with that? Do their beliefs, ideals align with yours? Are they financially responsible? Do they have a good job? Do they take care of themselves? Are they a good person? Are they disciplined and hardworking? Is the timing right? Do they plan on staying here long term? Is their personality legit compatible with yours? Most people's won't be. Are you all just similar enough to get along but just different enough to keep things interesting and balance each other out? Whereas in college, high school, it's just, LOL, or hot and fun, let's hang out. On top of all this, you have more responsibilities and less time to try and make it happen. After 25, the game changes. For a lot of single peeps I know, who are perfectly fine, great people, it's a struggle. And then after all this, you still have a greater than 50% chance of getting divorced. Leo. I promise I'm not this much of a doomer generally. Yup, that's how the paradigm has shifted. Problem with dating apps is it commoditizes everyone, makes everyone the flavor of the month, so it's maybe easier to get laid, harder to find something meaningful than maybe back in your day. As a guy, if you are pursuing even a slightly above average looking girl, they are absolutely getting bombarded by so much attention from guys that are as good or better than you. You feel like you're constantly competing. It is absolutely exhausting. As a girl, you get so much attention from all these guys, but have no idea about their true intentions. This attractive, successful guy could come off as someone who genuinely wants a relationship, tell you everything you want to hear, fuck you, and then disappear into the ether. It really is kind of brutal and kind of dehumanizing. This was quite a few years ago, but at a previous job I became a supervisor through the rapid growth of the company, so I ended up being younger than anyone reporting to me. A few years later, the rapid growth slowed during a pretty bad sales lull, so each supervisor was asked to cut a certain percentage of the cost of their department. I did all my cost analysis and found ways to make the department run cheaper, but I was still left with the dilemma of needing to cut a significant amount of salary from my budget. Several of my team members had children. The youngest member was paying for college with this job. I knew of one who was trying to pay significant medical bills. And one had very recently dealt with the death of a close family member. I couldn't do it. No, I wouldn't do it. I went to the owner of the company and showed him my numbers, and explained the circumstances for my department members. They all had so much at stake. I was a young single man with a marketable skill. So I put myself on the list of layoffs so my team could all keep their jobs. Even with eliminating my salary, I hadn't been able to cut quite enough, but the company let it slide. They all got to stay. I never made any big announcement. I just quietly packed up the day the company announced the layoffs. I'll never know if any of them knew what I did. I have to admit, it feels kind of nice to be able to tell somebody about it all these years later. When a parent dies. I'm almost 50. My dad died 3 weeks ago and it's really hard to deal with. I thought when you're older and they're older, it's easier than losing them when relatively young. I just want to be a kid again, and feel safe because my dad is still there, with my mom, protecting us. I know it'll get easier. I've experienced death of loved ones before. But I've never, as an adult, felt so much of a child as I do now. Edit. This post has been extremely cathartic. I can't describe how your replies have helped and humbled me. Thank you all so much for your responses so far. Capital X. You move out and suddenly realize there are no pens. Your parents have lots of pens, but you realize they never bought pens, they just had lots of them. Where did all these pens come from? Years of accumulation. There is chores every day and it's shit. The dishes, bathroom tiles, toilet, mopping the floor, carpet, taking out trash and everything about cleaning. It's exhausting and you have to do that every single day for the rest of your life. Edit. I meant to say that cleaning, in general, is exhausting and nobody told us that. You don't have to do things mentioned above every day, but there is some stuff that you have to do every day. Wash dishes, make the bed, put clothes in the closet, etc. It's so frustrating, because it means if you want to do something fun on the weekend, you have to choose whether to sacrifice your rest day or chores day. If you sacrifice rest, you spend the rest of the week exhausted and miserable. If you sacrifice chores, you come home to an apartment that looks like a pigsty and makes you feel miserable, and then you have to do twice as much work when you do chores the next Sunday. Either way, you pay for that one fun day the entirety of the next week. Almost makes you want to sacrifice the fun, but then your mental health starts tanking, and you pay for that for years. There's no way to win. Edit. There is one way to win. Support the 4-day work week and 3-day weekends. Also, so much rejection even when you nail it. Ugh, I feel this. I graduated with my master's degree in June, started applying for jobs in late March early April. Took several weeks and dozens of applications to land an interview for a position that actually looked promising and could see myself in. Did the interview and honestly felt like I nailed it. Don't think I could have possibly presented myself any better. I did all my research on the organization, asked good questions, and clearly expressed my dedication to the field. I thought for sure I had it in the bag. They emailed me a few days later, saying that while I impressed them, they decided to hire someone with a lot of experience. Like, bitch? You knew from the beginning that I'm fresh out of school. Of course I don't have a lot of experience. Why would you even call me in for an interview if that was going to disqualify me? SMH. Luckily I ended up accepting a position at another organization a short while later that ended up being just as good of a fit. But yeah, that was incredibly frustrating. For me the interesting part is that even as a true adult, over 50, I don't see myself as old. I have gained wisdom from making the same mistakes a few times and have learned to keep my mouth shut more than I used to. I can remain relatively calm when there is a spider in the room, but I still think the same as I did as a teen or young adult. I get excited about things like an approaching storm. Will there be snow? I am not attracted sexually to people of my age range. I just think they seem older somehow. I like going to the zoo. I like ice cream. Taking care of my sister's kids is fun because I can play. I truly thought by the time I was this old I would be wearing matchy polyester pants and tops and thinking mostly about the cost of oil. No one ever tells you that you will feel pretty much the same as you age. You don't get old in your mind. You don't get old in your mind. No, you get old in your lower back and in the skin under your neck, and in your medicine cabinet. You get old when you realize you took both stool softeners and stool hardeners and aren't sure which one's working. You get old when you're ready to relax at 5 p.m. instead of finally starting to play, and you start thinking which local diner has an early bird special. I got old when I hoped and prayed the oncoming storm would snow instead of raining because my knees just couldn't take the aggravation anymore. I'm 41 and have only been in a couple of relationships, one longish and one not so long. I have very little actual dating experience and I've been single for about 3 years. Other times in my life being single, which were much of my adult life, were far less difficult than it is now. I've never felt this level of loneliness, and lack of affection, physical and emotional intimacy, romantic connection, are truly painful on a level I can't really describe. I've been in therapy for about a bit longer than I've been single, and while it has helped with some reframing and challenging negative thoughts, at the end of the day I'm still single and still, romantically, alone. Part of the reason I was so unprepared was because like most people I just never thought I'd be alone at this age. High school was a challenge for me as I never developed much, for various reasons, some pretty bad, socially or sexually, and just never got the level of experience in dating and relationships that most people seem to have in their teens and 20s. That lack of experience became a huge handicap. I spent most of my time and effort in my late 20s and intimacy my 30s focusing on my education and career, and now it feels pretty pointless when it's just for me. I don't live extravagantly, and make way more money than my lifestyle requires, and many days I think I should be working for something closer to minimum wage since there's no one but me living on my income. It just further drives the idea that all that time and effort focusing on my education and career was a waste. Aside from all that, getting older and just living life on my own is terrifying in every sense. Real companionship and emotional intimacy cannot be overvalued. Going to bed alone, night after night, relying on one distraction after another to avoid things like existential dread from settling in gets extremely difficult. I used to have regular panic attacks but have that under control now fortunately, but there's no question that my life would be infinitely better in a healthy, fulfilling relationship. Ultimately, I've convinced myself after a handful of bad experiences trying to get into the foray of dating that I just don't have what it takes to be successful at it, and so it's not uncommon now to fall into the pit of dread about things continuing this way, alone, for TF rest of my life. People say, rather naively, in my opinion, that you have to be happy alone to be happy in a relationship, but I know that's utter BS. Happiness isn't a one-size-fits-all thing, and for many, there is an upper limit to achievable happiness on one's own, and a relationship can augment that and boost the level of happiness to something higher than the two individuals can attain on their own. So it's hard to accept that this is as good as it gets, and terrifying to think things will only get worse from here. The whole concept of credit. When you're a kid, you work to earn cash and then you spend it. If something costs more than you've earned, you just don't get it until you've saved enough cash. Then you grow up, get a job, pay your bills on time for a while, and all of a sudden banks are giving you credit cards, lines of credit, personal loans, which make you feel secure and rich, but if you aren't smart and disciplined they can absolutely destroy your financial life for many years. People talk about this in adulthood, but kids are taught little to nothing about it. I think parents assume schools are doing it and schools assume parents are doing it. I had great parents, but financial literacy was a huge blind spot and it has led me to make profoundly bad decisions that will impact myself and my family for years. I cannot stress enough that the available credit on your credit card isn't your money, it's the bank's. If you need the bank's money to buy something, that means you can't actually afford it. If you really want or need someone very costly that you can't afford to pay cash for at the moment, wait until you can, however long it will take. If you buy it on credit, then the next thing you want will be even harder to acquire because whatever cash you would have ordinarily had for it is now going to interest payments for past purchases. Having a credit card that you use and pay off monthly to get miles or other perks and to build your credit score, or for true emergency expenses that you simply can't afford in the moment, are good uses of credit. Upgrading your lifestyle is not. Honestly, this is partially just a weirdest thing. In my EU country we use debit cards, your money from your account on a bank card. Almost no one uses a credit card unless traveling or doing online shopping across borders. Plenty of people just don't have one. The whole credit score thing is also weird to me. If you never pay or have a lot of debts, banks just won't give you a loan, but for a rental you just need to show your proof of income. To get a mortgage you need to show your contract from your job, and the bank finds your debts and calculates how much they are comfortable to loan you. If you never had a loan before, that is no issue. Another difference is that you are responsible for the loan, so even if they take your house, if it does not sell for enough, they will keep coming after you. Feeding my family is a nightmare. I had dreams of making big family dinners that we would all enjoy together around the table every night, or cute little bento box lunches of organic fruits and vegetables. Instead, I make one dinner for my husband and I. Sometimes the 17-year-old will pick at it, but she frequently gets Taco Bell or some other disgusting shit right before dinner. The 8-year-old is an 8-year-old and she only rarely eats what I've made, and more often than not ends up making herself a sandwich. The 14-year-old had several food allergies up until 2 years ago, so he suffers from food-related anxiety. Not surprising, as most foods could have literally killed him for most of his life, and he only eats grilled chicken and 4 baby carrots for dinner every night. The chicken is an improvement over the 10 years of goddamn fish sticks every night. Every dinner that I make ends in me feeling like a complete failure as a mother. Every night. It's great. Literally everything costs money. You need money to eat, to have a place to sleep. You need to pay for Wi-Fi and the phone bill, and for electricity, and taxes. Hobbies cost money, even free ones like running start to cost money when you go through pairs of shoes, and need clothes, and to shower when you get back. Making friends costs money because you're expected to do things together like go out for meals or try new activities. Like, objectively, I knew that money was important as an adult, but I always thought it was more about quality of life. I grew up in a relatively privileged middle-class household and was sheltered from the fact that literally just existing costs so much money, and I'm just facing the reality now of how difficult it is to take a break. There's a poem called Warning by Jenny Joseph that goes like this. Warning. When I am an old woman I shall wear purple with a red hat which doesn't go, and doesn't suit me. And I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals, and say we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickle for a week and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay our rent and not swear in the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now? So people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I am old, and start wear purple. The loneliness. Experiencing being alone in a sea of people is unpleasant. Walking around invisible in plain view is not a great feeling. Having better conversations with cats or inanimate objects than people doesn't make oneself feel great. It just seems people slip away like the years that disappear so fast. It feels like growing translucent, slowly disappearing into the background. That feeling that absolutely no one cares if you live or die. The knowledge that if you slipped away this very moment nobody would notice or care until you started to smell, is not a good one. So the counter reaction, the fuck you I don't care is great. Did not expect it and it is great. I am unbound, limitless. I can do whatever I want because I have given up. Nothing is scary, though some things are less pleasant than others. But the freedom feeling is awesome. Dancing on the precipice every second, screaming obscenities at the world. Took me about 40 years to realize, but truth is nothing matters. And as such that means I am free. Honestly, that I had to pay for the dentist. I'm in Canada, so I grew up thinking everyone had universal healthcare. At the dentist, I never saw my parents pay after a visit, so I assumed it was covered by the province, same as when I visit a doctor. So the first time I go to a dentist after moving cities for my first job out of university, I didn't even bring my credit card with me to the dentist, and I did not have enough in my bank account to cover the surprisingly large bill. I had to call my credit card info into them after I got home. It turns out my childhood dentist had just sent the bills directly to my dad. Thankfully insurance did cover the majority, but still, it ranks up there as one of my most startling adult discoveries. That adulthood is a skill. not an age. It took me a while to realize this, but being an adult is really making peace with doing shit you don't always want to do, and having the consistency to do it anyway. People don't seem to realize that although some people are slightly more naturally prone to being good at adulting, no one actually wants to do it all of the time. There's no secret gene that you don't have that X does that makes X so much better at the gym, finances, work, sleep etc. than you are. X is probably just the kind of person that got good at getting up, doing shit they don't always want to do, gym, work, study, sleeping at the right time, learning about finances, that it became a tolerable habit after years. How being good at your job means nothing at all. You coming to employer, saying I can give you the best quality of work, here, I have examples to prove my words. But the employer says nah, if we are not friends, I won't spend even 10 minutes looking at it. Then you go to HR, but they say quality of your work does not matter, if you do not fit the requirements, I won't even pass your work examples for employer to look at. I knew that having physical and mental disabilities will make my life harder, but I had no idea after 17 plus years of attempts, thousands of letters sent, etc., nobody would give me even one chance to show what I am capable at. I learned that pure talent means nothing if you're unable to follow formalities. Employers would rather hire someone with a very low skill and little knowledge of subject, if that person can check all the checkboxes required to get a job. And, of course, they would hire someone they are connected to, friends of friends. So if you're unable to form social connections, too bad, no jobs for you. It's especially funny because all the medium, books, movies, games, are trying to show how society making exceptions for people with disabilities, eccentric behavior, etc. if that means top quality of the job they do, but in real life things are literally opposite. I wish I could know it before, so I would just give up on my life instantly and have more time to enjoy what little things I have left instead of spending so much time on fruitless attempts when I never had a chance.